They built an empire that dominated the world for more than a millennium. But how did a simple village from Latium become, then lose, the greatest power in history? And above all, what has the Roman Empire really left in our lives today? In the beginning, the city of Seven Hills stood like a rock in the flow of centuries. Rome breathes. Rome pulsates. Rome is still just a republic of proud citizens who call themselves free. They speak of res publica, the thing of the people. They believe that power flows between the austere Senate and the turbulent assemblies. They do not yet see that beneath the togas, shadows larger than the city are forming, that an empire already stands, invisible, behind their quarrels. Since 509 before our era, a date that the annals fix as a sacred milestone, the Republic lives, struggles, grows. From kings driven out, consuls renewed every year, numerous magistrates, laws engraved in bronze. The Romans take pride in this. They speak of themselves as men of moderation and virtue, masters of Latium, then Italy, then the Mediterranean. But the more Rome conquers, the more its own order falters. The victories inflate fortunes, ambitions, grudges. The very ground of the Republic cracks, without anyone really noticing. Yet, amid the wars and oaths, a word already floats on the lips: imperium. The authority to command, the power to lead armies, to decide life, death, peace, and war. This imperium, entrusted to passing magistrates, seeks a larger body, a steadier hand. It awaits a master. The decades pass. The first century before our era thunders like a storm. Within Rome itself, the city divides. Noble families tear at honors like wild beasts. Generals are acclaimed by soldiers more loyal to their leader than to the homeland. Marius, the popular, Sulla, the fierce patrician, stand against each other. The 80s see Rome transform into a battlefield. Comrades kill former companions. Sulla marches on the city, imposes a dictatorship, draws up lists of the proscribed. Heads fall on the forum. Fortunes change hands in blood and ashes. The Republic trembles, but does not yet collapse. When Sulla abdicates, the scars remain. Vengeance has twisted the laws. Weapons have shown their strength. From then on, generals know that they can bend Rome itself. Destiny prepares a new figure, more ambitious, more daring, more unstoppable. Julius Caesar emerges, victor in Gaul, haloed with triumphs, followed by legions forged in mud, snow, the blood of conquered peoples. Opposite him, Pompey, another giant of war, former ally, now rival through the jealousy of senators. In 49 before our era, a thin river traces a symbolic border, the Rubicon. Caesar stops for a moment. Behind him, the province, the legal imperium. Ahead, Italy and the forbidden. He knows that by crossing this thread of water, he will cast the last remnants of the Republic into the fire. He crosses. The standards snap. Rome empties. Pompey flees to the east. The whole world holds its breath. Civil war ignites the Mediterranean. At Pharsalus in 48, the armies crash in a chaos of dust and metal. Shields resonate. Horses collapse. Roman eagles rise against each other. Caesar triumphs. Pompey falls, assassinated in Egypt like a mere fugitive. The victor returns to Rome. Dictator, unquestioned master. The senators fear him as much as they flatter him. They see a unique, continuous power drawing that devours their ancient prerogatives. On March 15th, 44 before our era, the Ides of March, the cold stone of Pompey's theater is stained with blood. Caesar is surrounded. The daggers fall. Men who call themselves liberators strike with rage, as if they want to kill more than a man, but an idea, that of solitary power. The dictator collapses at the feet of Pompey's statue. The crowd outside does not yet understand that Rome has crossed a threshold from which it cannot return. Caesar's death does not bring peace. It opens an abyss. A new power agreement forms. Harder, colder. The Second Triumvirate. In 43, the Lex Titia consecrates this strange three-headed creature. Lepidus, Mark Antony, Octavian. They divide provinces, armies, honors among themselves. They decide who must live, who must die. The proscriptions begin again. Lists are posts. Cicero, voice of the Republic, falls in turn. His hands, his head are cut off. They are displayed as a silent warning. The Republican word has no refuge. But these three men cannot rule together. Provinces become fields of rivalry. In the heart of the East, Antony unites with Cleopatra VII, Queen of Egypt, a woman of charm and calculation. They dream of a kingdom more vast than Rome, of a dominance shared between the sands of the Nile and the marbles of the Acropolis. Opposite them, Octavian weaves his web. Calm, patient, ruthless. He presents himself as the defender of traditions, the man of the Senate and the people, while preparing for total war. In 31 BC, the Ionian Sea boils with steel. Off the coast of Actium, the fleets align. Ships creak, oars plunge, archers stand ready. The wind carries the scent of salt and resin. Octavian, guided by General Agrippa, traps Antony and Cleopatra in a fatal snare. Smoke from burning ships rises to the sky. The cries of the drowning mingle with the brief orders. When the battle ends, the outcome is no longer in doubt. The world chooses its master. The following year, Octavian enters Egypt. Alexandria falls. Antony and Cleopatra, defeated, refuse the humiliation of triumph. They take their own lives. Their bodies surrender to legend. Egypt becomes an imperial province, directly tied to the victorious young man. From now on, no force stands between him and domination. But Octavian does not proclaim himself king. He knows the Romans hate the title. He advances masked. In 27 BC, he formally returns his powers to the Senate. The gesture is theatrical, solemn. The senators play the role expected of them. They urge him to keep the command. They offer him a new name, as brilliant as a halo. Augustus, the Venerable. They salute him as princeps, the first of the citizens. They do not see, or pretend to ignore, that by begging him to stay, they yield the essential, the reality of arms, provinces, and decisions. The words remain republican. The substance is no longer. A new regime is born, the Principate. It does not announce itself as a break. It presents itself as a restoration, a rediscovered harmony. And yet, The empire, as a political power embodied in a man, has just been born. In 23 BC, the structure is solidified in law. Augustus obtains the tribunician power, this sacred force that allows him to protect the people, to convene assemblies, to block decisions. He also receives a proconsular imperium superior to that of all other governors. No magistracy equals him. No authority surpasses him. Without a crown, without a royal scepter, he yet holds in his hands the threads of the entire empire. The princeps will reign as the invisible center of a vast network. In the provinces where legions are stationed, where the borders roar, he holds the direct imperium. He appoints the legates who govern in his name. He chooses the prefects, the high officials, some of the magistrates. The aerarium militare, the military treasury, answers to his will. The legions obey his voice. The borders recede or close according to his calculation. Power is now a river that takes its source in a single man. Around him, however, old forms persist. The Senate still sits, surrounded by columns and statues. It administers provinces called senatorial, calmer, less militarized. It renders judgments, votes senatus consulta, maintains the memory of the ancients. Consuls continue to give their names to the year. Praetors, aediles, quaestors hold their rank. But behind the facade, the real levers shift. Magistrates pass, the princeps endures. In the provinces, a finer administration is woven. The lands entrusted to proconsuls, representatives of the Senate, are distinguished from the zones entrusted to the legates of Augustus as propraetors or to prefects. Cadastres are drawn up. Men, fields, herds are counted. In Egypt, in Gaul, censuses establish the basis for tax and recruitment. The empire looks at itself, measures, organizes itself. The equestrian order, once a simple category of wealth, becomes a pool of state servants. Knights govern Egypt, watch over the praetorium, oversee finances. A new function-based nobility rises, attached not to the city, but to the prince. To support this structure, an unparalleled army is needed. The Roman legion, a compact mass of citizens, forms the backbone. 4,000, 5,000, sometimes 6,000 men, aligned, disciplined, forged by training and oath. Alongside them, the auxilia, troops raised among the peregrines of the provinces, stand in complement. They ride, shoot arrows, wield slings. After 25 years of service, they often receive citizenship. The empire, through the army, transforms foreigners into Romans. The seas do not remain silent. The fleets, the classis of Misenum and Ravenna, watch over the heart of Italy. Other squadrons guard the Rhine, the Danube. The Mediterranean Sea becomes an interior space, crisscrossed by war and trade ships, where Rome imposes its law. Under Augustus, the borders shift. Egypt, already conquered, is integrated, secured, treated as a special domain of the prince. In Gaul, the Caesarian conquest is digested and organized. Lugdunum, the future Lyon, becomes a center, a provincial capital. The Gauls are divided into regions: Lyonnaise, Aquitaine, Belgica. The local elites, alternately anxious and fascinated, learn to live under Roman law. When the revolt of Julius Florus and Julius Sacrovir breaks out in 21 AD, it is harshly repressed. The lesson is clear. Rome tolerates particularisms, not secessions. Further away, in Hispania, in Illyria, in Pannonia, in Moesia, Roman roads delve into valleys, climb mountains. The garrisons are set like iron nails. East of the Rhine, Augustus dreams of a border on the Elbe. The legions advance, build camps, erect bridges. But in the deep forests of Germania, a disaster looms. In the year 9, in a maze of swamps and fallen trunks, Varus falls into a trap. 3 legions, 17, 18, 19, vanish under the blows of Germanic warriors. The eagles are lost. The name of Teutoburg becomes a lament in Roman memory. Augustus, upon hearing the news, wanders through his palace, strikes the walls, implores the return of his dead legions. The drive toward the Elbe is broken. From then on, the empire learns prudence. The Flavians, then the Antonines, fortify borders rather than moving them without measure. The limes winds along the Rhine, the Danube. Watchtowers, palisades, ditches, camps succeed one another, forming a visible scar between the Roman world and barbarian lands. In Britain, Hadrian has a stone wall erected, starting in 122. A gray line whipped by the wind, separating the legions from the northern tribes. Further, Trajan, emperor from 98 to 117, still attempts the great adventure. He crosses the Danube, confronts Dacia in 2 fierce wars. The Dacians, entrenched in their mountains, fight fiercely but eventually give in. The gold from their mines flows to Rome. Trajan then pushes into Mesopotamia, seizes Armenia. The empire reaches its maximal extent, but this expansion burns quickly. Under Hadrian, many of these eastern conquests are abandoned. He prefers to consolidate, fortify, breathe, rather than ceaselessly run toward new horizons. At the heart of this territorial colossus, men are not all equal. The law draws invisible borders. There are Roman citizens, proud of their rights, their Latin names, their access to the city's courts. There are the peregrini, the free multitude but foreign to civic law. Slaves, living property, wear visible or hidden chains. The freedmen, former freed slaves, oscillate between gratitude and ambition. Over time, citizenship extends. Provincial notables receive the right of the city, especially under the Julio-Claudians, the Flavians, the Antonines. The elites of Gaul, Hispania, Africa, Asia are recognized as Romans, without leaving their lands of origin. In 212 AD, a decree strikes the entire empire. The Antonine Constitution, promulgated by Caracalla, offers citizenship to almost all free men. The legal barriers dissipate. There remain some exclusions, the dediticii perhaps, forcefully subdued and less favored. But the essential is accomplished. To be free in the empire is, for most, to be Roman. The city has become world, the world, city. In the provinces, cities sprout like seeds of stone. Lugdunum, Colonia Claudia Ara Agrippinensium, Cologne, Londinium, Tarraco, and so many others bristle with forums, temples, baths. Coloniae, municipia, each status, each title, integrates communities into the Roman framework. In the West, Latin becomes the language of contracts, judgments, inscriptions. In the East, Greek, already ancient, continues to dominate schools, libraries, learned conversations. 2 languages, 1 authority. The roads, like veins, cross continents. The Via Appia stretches from Rome to the south. The Via Aurelia skirts the sea. The Via Egnatia runs toward the east. Under the arches of aqueducts, water flows, clear, to fountains. The Pont du Gard in Gaul stands like a bridge between rocks and men. The amphitheaters open to crowds. The Colosseum, inaugurated around 80 AD, swallows thousands of spectators. The baths embrace bodies in their warm vapors. The empire builds everywhere a recognizable landscape, where one knows, from one end to the other, what it means to be under Roman peace. This peace, however, rests on difficult gold. The monetary system revolves around the silver denarius, the gold aureus, the bronze sestertius. Reforms, devaluations punctuate the centuries, like tremors in the flow of exchanges. Ships loaded with wheat leave Egypt and North Africa to feed the crowds of Rome. Baedecan oil floods the amphorae. The wines of Italy, then of Gaul, spread onto tables. From the east come silks, spices, perfumes, luxury objects. Behind this prosperity, crowds of slaves toil in the fields, the mines, the workshops, but also free settlers, small landowners, craftsmen, merchants. The imperial economy is a tight web, made of inequalities and constant circulations. Above these exchanges, something invisible irrigates souls. Traditional religion, inherited from the ancestors, gives everyone bearings. Jupiter, master of the sky. Juno, Minerva, Mars, Apollo. The Romans open their pantheons to the gods of the provinces. Local deities find their place in the sanctuaries. The empire, to be accepted, in turn accepts the multiple faces of the sacred. But a novelty gradually imposes itself: the imperial cult. Temples rise to honor the genius of the emperor and the sacralized figure of Rome. In Lugdunum, an altar of Rome and Augustus gathers the Gallic notables in a political liturgy. Honoring the prince is honoring the empire. Honoring the empire is affirming one's loyalty. The keenest minds are not content with sacrifices. They reflect, debate, write. Stoicity speaks of virtue and reason. Epicureanism seeks ataraxia. Platonism contemplates the forms. Seneca, man of letters and imperial advisor, meditates on the brevity of life. Marcus Aurelius, philosopher-emperor, records his thoughts in the secrecy of his campaigns. Historians write the memory. Livy recounts the origins. Tacitus probes the dark recesses of power. Suetonius draws biting portraits of the Caesars. Virgil sings the grandeur of Rome in the Aeneid. Horace chisels his odes. Ovid plays with metamorphoses. Cicero, already dead, remains the model of the orator, of the phrase that attacks, persuades, and chains. And yet, at the margin, in a remote province, a discrete event occurs that will eventually shake the entire empire. In Judea, under the reign of Tiberius, a man preaches. Jesus of Nazareth speaks to the crowds, heals, provokes. His words circulate, his actions unsettle. In Jerusalem, he is condemned. He dies crucified, an infamous punishment reserved for slaves and rebels. For Rome, it is just another condemned man on a forgotten hill. But for some, it is the beginning of something else. The disciples of this man scatter across the empire. They carry a strange, uncompromising message which speaks of a single God, an offered salvation, a life after death. Slowly, in the alleys of Rome, Antioch, Alexandria, Corinth, Ephesus, communities are born. Letters circulate, stories are written. The Roman authorities, initially indifferent, become aware of this new presence. Sometimes repression strikes. Under Nero, after the fire of Rome in 64, Christians are accused of having started the fire. Tortures take place. Tacitus, in his Annals, notes their death with a mix of distance and horror. For him, they are superstitious people. For others, they are already witnesses of a faith that will not bend. Thus, while the Roman Empire is born, structures itself, expands, three dynamics intertwine without anyone being able to untangle them. The first is that of power, which leaves the hands of citizens to concentrate in those of a prince, first Augustus, then a line of emperors. The second is that of the land, which, from the hills of Latium, stretches to the sands of Africa, the forests of Germania, the mountains of Dacia, the Greek cities of the East. The third is that of souls, who, from Jupiter to Christ, seek in the tumult of conquests a meaning that surpasses victories. On the forums, the statues of emperors shine in the sun. On the margins, soldiers stand guard behind the palisades of the limes. In the workshops, artisans strike the gold and silver coins with the profile of the prince. In the rhetoric schools, young people learn Cicero's speeches, unaware that one day, the very language they pronounce will change its role. In the catacombs, some already pray to a god without a face, waiting for a kingdom that is not of this world. The Roman Empire, in the political sense, is not yet divided between West and East. For those living in these centuries, there are only the Romani, a people with 1,000 faces, and the Imperium Romanum, that immense force which weighs on men like fate and protects them like armor. Rome rules from its own city and will one day open a new capital on the Bosphorus. But for now, everything converges towards the hills, towards the Senate, towards the imperial palace, towards the capital where the eternal flame burns. Much later, 476 will be marked as the end of the Western Empire, with the deposition of a young emperor with a laughably symbolic name, Romulus Augustulus. It will be said that this ends what began with Augustus in 27 BCE. But at the moment when the Principate is established, when the legions march, when the cities rise, no one yet thinks of the fall. No one imagines that what seems indestructible will bear within it its own fractures. For the moment, history is only just beginning to surge forward. The Republic has given birth to an empire. The Principate is its first form, still covered in its old attire. In the centuries to come, other metamorphoses will arise: crises, harsher dominations, deification of sovereigns, increasingly marked divisions between the Western and Eastern parts. But behind these future changes, a thread does not break: that of a power that considers itself universal, of a city that sees itself as the center of the world, of an idea that, even after the fall of the walls, will continue to haunt memories. The Roman Empire stands there, between the shimmering Mediterranean and the mountains that hug the horizon. It advances, confident, carried by its roads, its laws, its gods, its legions, still ignorant that destiny, silent, has already begun to count the centuries that separate it from its end.